finally get one of those outside.
All right, so I would like to call to order. Okay, I would like to call to order the July 15th Planning and Zoning Board meeting. We're gonna have to make a change to the agenda. We're gonna take item number 4, new business, and move it up to the top so that we can swear in and reappoint board members so that we will have a quorum so the meeting can proceed.
All right, would y'all like to come up front, please? Jeremiah, you can stay. Lucky one. If you want to grab your oath paper, so you can read it. Got it? Yeah. You wish one to individually, or would you like to read it together? Together's good. Go right ahead.
I, Robert Fern, do solemnly affirm that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a member of the Town of Harrisburg Planning and Zoning Board.
Very good, thank you. Looking at the camera. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, thank you.
4, 5, 6.
Yes.
That's false, is that?
I don't think I photobomb too bad.
Yes, sir. Nice to come.
You're great. Proud of you. It was meant for you. Yeah, Casey's number, I'll give it to you. Yeah. Okay.
Well, congratulations to all the new members, reappointed members, maybe watching remotely too, some of you. Looking forward to a good year of this. Okay, so next item on the agenda would be any special presentations, which I believe we do not have tonight. Addenda adoption. Public comment. Anybody signed up to speak either remotely or in person?
Just adopt it.
We have to move to adopt.
Oh, move to adopt the agenda
Second.
with the modification. Second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
Motion is carried.
And we don't have anybody for public comments.
Okay. So now we have the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the draft minutes for May 20th, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right. Consent agenda's been approved. Do not see any old business listed. We've already dealt with the new business of swearing in the members and establishing quorum. Now we need to elect chairman and vice chairman.
Perfect.
How would you like to have that process?
We got.
We got.
Yeah, you just
I nominate.
just a motion and vote.
Yep.
I nominate Bill Leak for chair and Jessica Fava for vice chair.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second for those two appointments?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Congratulations, guys.
Oh, thank you. Good deal. All right. Then we have on a new business, planning staff will provide board some overview of planning and zoning board rules and procedures and board member duties.
So I was talking to, I think Carly or Shelley, I can't remember who, before the meeting, and I said, we can just dismiss the four of you, and then I could just talk to Robbie, right? But I know how much you love hearing from me, so I will try to keep it as brief as possible. But we do want a little refresher. One of the things that I think we've been successful at is getting you all some training, and it's important because no two cases are alike, and the law is always changing, and now we have some proposed changes which could theoretically really be a problem. So, Iswar, how are you? This is Iswar Chamarthe.
Just in case she looks at me.
You're good. You're good.
And so, we really want to make sure that you have all the resources that you can get. And of course, we're always glad to help. And if we're really in trouble, then we call Rich. So that's kind of the story. But let's just kind of give refresher overview. So Planning and Zoning Board is a board that is actually in the general statutes for the state of North Carolina. Our meeting's the third Tuesday of each month, and you will get packets, you will have information, and we usually get that to you a week ahead of time. The quorum is 4, so if we have 4, we can conduct business. If we don't, then we will not be able to conduct business, but we can have some offline discussion. How about that? So bottom line is that if the town wants to exercise zoning, it must have a planning board. And it also needs to have a land use plan, which we have both, so we're doing pretty good so far. Zoning amendments, for those who have been on the board for the last year or two, know that any zoning amendment, which is a change either to the text or to the map, has to go before the planning board for review. You've got 30 days to make a recommendation. If you don't make a recommendation, it goes on to the town council without a recommendation. However, if you make a recommendation, that's passed on to the town council. The board, at least under statutes, must have at least 3. 5 to 7 typically is what we have, and we have 7. And so we have, that's been as long as I've been here, and I think that's pretty standard for most communities around here. We don't have any alternates, so we need to make sure that we have 4 here to conduct business. There's also in the rules of procedure, also in the statutes, which rules of procedure reflects that, a requirement that we have at least 1 ETJ member. Iswar is our ETJ member. Iswar has a distinction of being ETJ member for the Board of Adjustment and for the Planning and Zoning Board. So he had to be very careful what he said in the Board of Adjustment meeting, because that's all under oath. But you can be loose as you want here, Iswar. This is not quasi-judicial. You can have fun in this meeting. But actually, the way the statutes read, if you have a population over a certain size, you may need a second ETJ member. Now, Rich, I don't know of any communities that have a second ETJ member. I don't know if you're aware of any larger ones, but essentially it's a proportional number. So you take 7 planning board members, I think you divide your population by that, and so we're about 24,000, so let's just say 3,500. And if you had more than 3,500, then you would jump into a second ETJ. Actually, I guess you probably got to go all the way through to have 7,000, you'd need a second ETJ member.
General Assembly trying to get rid of ETJ anyway,
Yeah.
across the state.
Hmm.
And a lot of it's been eaten up by people annexing, so probably don't have
Yeah, so I think our population is around 1,100 people in our ETJ, so we have one, and Eastwar is going to be representing the ETJ. The role, planning board primarily to advise the town council on rezoning, subdivisions, text amendments, land use plans, small area plans. So you are the first review, and then it goes on to the council for their final consideration and vote. Under the statutes, the planning and zoning board, or planning board under statute, can actually be designated as the final decision-making authority, meaning that you could decide the rezonings without it going to the council. Once upon a time, that was the case here. That's no longer the case. It is the case in Kannapolis, and I believe also in Concord. But it can go either way. So, yeah, at this point, you're all in the recommendation role. So you're going to be looking at the plans. What we try to do is give you as much information as possible so that you can make an informed decision. And we are, again, always available to answer any questions. But you're really looking at the things that maybe the council, big picture. You're really trying to drill down and look at this from a man on the street, woman on the street. So that is your role, so you can be nitpicky in this role. So what do you consider when you're making decisions? Current land use, future land use, other plans, park and rec plan, economic development plan, utility availability, thoroughfare plans, which are the plans which show where all the roads will be. We have a transportation plan, which is on the website. Town councils also, their concern is the long run and whether the proposal is good for the community. The town council is accountable to the electorate. Town council, of course, appoints you all, and so ultimately you're answerable to the town council. You all have terms of 2 years. You may have 2 terms of 2 years or 4 years total, and then you would have to cycle off of the board. So planning board is focused on what are known as legislative decisions. If you are familiar with Board of Adjustment, their focus is quasi-judicial. Legislative simply means that the town council is making the final decision, so acting as a legislature. And so the advice that you give to the town council is going to be the basis in part for their review. And so, the hope always is that there would be alignment between the planning board and the town board. That doesn't always happen. You may recommend something and the town council may vote no. Or you may vote not to recommend something and the town council may vote in favor. So that can happen. Your votes are majority, simple majority. So it's not a super majority. It's not anything more than just a simple majority. And if you get that, then your applicant has approval. Conditions can only be placed on conditional zoning requests. We'll get into conditional zoning for our new members, talk a little bit more about that, but essentially conditional zoning is a way to give the town an assurance about what will be coming. And then also the applicant knows that if they get their approval, that they will be able to do what it is that they have agreed to and all the conditions. And so you all, and I think probably in the past year or so, this has come up, you can add conditions if you would like, or recommend the addition of conditions. Usually what we'll do is put together a staff report and we'll have conditions. And some of them are standard, some of them may be unique to the project. But in the process of deliberation, you may all agree and come to a decision that you want to add a condition and recommend that that be added. And so that would go to the town council. I will say that, in terms of conditional zoning request, the applicant has to agree to that condition. You can't impose a condition on them. However, if they don't agree to the condition, the town board can also, town council rather, can deny their request. So no one's twisting anybody's arm, but if it's a condition, then it has to be agreed to. And then typically we will have a development agreement which codifies that condition or whatever the conditions are, and holds the applicant accountable. And also, if there's any public, usually investment, that spells that out, what the town will do. So if there's any public road improvements or utility improvements or land dedication, whatever it might be, then that would be part of the decision. So ETJ simply means extraterritorial jurisdiction. I have to slow down when I say that. A lot of syllables there. And it simply is an area outside the town's corporate limits or the limits within which people pay taxes to the town. Pretty simple. If you live outside the town, you live in the county, you don't pay taxes to the town. If you live in the town, you pay taxes to the town and the county. So ETJ is an area that we, the town, you as the planning board and town council have been given oversight of. So even though the ETJ is not in the town's limits in terms of zoning and land use and code enforcement, we have jurisdiction. And the reason for that is so that, at least historically, this was the case, that what you didn't want happening was around the perimeter of the town, you could have a completely different and maybe uses that were very much in opposition to what the town wanted. And so there was this band created of a mile for up to a certain population, then it would go up, with population that went up. And so you could have ETJ, within that area. Now, what's happened over time, and I'm not sure when this happened, but there are what are called contiguous and then non-contiguous annexations. Contiguous would be if a property is immediately adjacent to the town's limits. That's contiguous. Non-contiguous means they're an island. They're separated from the town, but both can be annexed. There's certain requirements that have to be met for that. Now, you all don't get involved in annexation, so you could not worry about that. However, in most rezonings that we have seen, residential, they usually involve annexation. So you have some land that's in the county jurisdiction, and developer wants to come in and build 150 homes, 200 homes, and usually to do that they want to provide utilities, because most people want utilities with their home. And so town's policy is that if you are going to get utilities, or we're going to extend utilities to you, you have to be in the town limits. So typically what we'll do is do both at the same time. You all you'll weigh in on the rezoning, but when it gets to the council, there's an action on annexation and an action on rezoning. So typically what will happen is council will act first on the rezoning and make that subject to the annexation. Do I have that right, Rich, or do we do the annexation first, subject to the rezoning?
Gotta
I
annex
think you
it
have to
first.
annex it first.
Yeah.
It's gotta be in the
I
town.
think we know, well, I think we do it, the rezoning is approved subject to the annexation, so it's not activated, and then the board, council takes a vote on the annexation, and they vote to annex, and then that rezoning is effective. So there's a few different ways to do it, but yes,
It really
if,
depends on how you work it. It can be either way.
you can, yeah, so, but ultimately, the bottom line is you have to be in the town limits to get the town
Wait,
utilities.
so I thought Churchill Farms is in town limits.
Churchill Farm, Carly, you're the expert on all the,
Churchill Farms is in town limits. Yeah.
Well, no, that wasn't a requirement, how many years ago, when did that change?
right, so there was a time where utilities were extended without requiring
No, that,
to be in the town limits.
Outside the city limits, yeah.
So that was maybe about 10 years ago or so, 15?
no, Churchill Farms is only,
Yeah.
not that old.
Um,
I'm just saying, because you do live in Churchill Farms, so how is he ETJ when he's in town limits?
Situations where also there were private utilities that were failing and such, so the
No,
town.
I'm just like, if he's ETJ, but he's in Churchill Farms, how is he ETJ when that's town
Oh,
limits?
how is it the name of the county?
Oh, I'm sorry, oh, you're asking, okay,
Oh, so-
yeah,
Like,
so.
as the ETJ member,
Right,
have to
right.
live
So-
in an
so-
ETJ's
All
area.
right, I understand. So,
Okay.
the ETJ member, under the rules of procedure, is an appointment of the county. If the county does not appoint, and if they fail to appoint within a certain time period, the town can appoint. And we can appoint anybody we want, in the
Okay.
town limits, outside the town limits, in the ETJ, we can do anything, so.
So the ETJ doesn't necessarily have representation. Okay, okay,
So,
okay.
and, yeah.
Sorry.
So that-
It was that, I was
Easier
just curious,
since Churchill
I was
is-
just curious, like, wait, I know Churchill Farms is
15
in
years
town
ago
limits.
or so, there was an agreement between Charlotte and Harrisburg. Charlotte was going to take over a bunch of private utilities on both sides of the line, some in Mecklenburg, some in Cabarrus. And the Utilities Commission said they couldn't take over the ones in Cabarrus. And all of those, and I don't remember what all neighborhoods they were, but there were a number of them. And so Utilities Commission said they couldn't do that, so they ended up having to sell them to the town. And so the town actually took over those private utilities, but they didn't annex all those areas. So there are some areas where we provide utilities in those subdivisions that are not part of the town.
So,
I
yeah,
think in the meantime, some of them have been annexed, but not all.
right, so there
There's a
are
lot of different
some,
things that have happened over time.
yeah, so.
No, that was just my main question.
Yeah,
Okay.
but, well, now you got an education on ETJ utilities
I did.
and
Thank
all
you.
that. stuff.
Thank you. Just
Good,
what I needed.
so UDO, I think everybody knows what that means, Unified Development Ordinance, HALOP, Harrisburg Area Land Use Plan, and I'll be so glad when we get a new comp plan, because I really don't like that acronym. We're gonna come up with something really cool, I don't know what it is, but it's gonna be much better than HALOP. ETJ,
Oh,
now.
we can skip that.
Listen,
Been down there.
this is the work of someone who's sitting to my left wearing a red dress. So I'm not going to name names, but, so again, ETJ is outside of our limits. And I'll show you a map in just a second. Maybe I have that here. Yes, okay. So in the green are the town's corporate limits. So if you're in the green, you get a town of Harrisburg garbage can. That's how you know you're in the town, right? If you're in that sort of pale orange, then ETJ. Now, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but if everybody in the ETJ voted to be a part of the town, that would then bring them into the town. That's called voluntary annexation. It used to be that there was involuntary annexation. I think that stopped about 2005 maybe, where the town could go out and grab land and say, we want this piece of land, we're gonna bring it in. You can't do that anymore. It has to be voluntary, which is why when a developer comes in, they request that we would annex and so forth. But if somebody in the ETJ wants to come in and they make a request, council can bring them in.
If they want to, yeah. And it doesn't have to be all of them, it can just be about partial.
Yeah.
So, and there can still be some involuntary annexation, but the restrictions on it are so great that, like you say, it pretty much doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
If a parcel was put in ETJ through involuntary means, can they reverse it?
The only way it can be reversed is by the General Assembly. You have to go to the General Assembly to de-annex it.
Yeah, to de-annex, yeah. And I've seen that before, you know, pretty unique because you got to go to the General Assembly, and so your local representative or senator or who has to put a bill essentially before the legislature has to pass and the governor has to sign it. I mean, it's.
We've had one out here. It's been some years ago.
Yeah. So, let me see if I get to the next one. Okay, here we go. This is what I want to say. All right. So you see the line that is red, blue, and kind of orangish. That is the territory within which the town can annex. So again, voluntarily within that area. So we have annexation agreements with, starting at the north, Charlotte, our Concord rather, we just re-upped for that. Midland, we did that last year. Charlotte, January 1st, we are, that's expiring, so we need to get an extension with Charlotte because we don't want them coming over and we don't want any land from Charlotte. So, but this essentially, theoretically, legally, the town of Harrisburg could grow completely into that area. And maybe, who knows, Rich, 50 years from now, the legislature may say, you know what, we're tired of all this, you know, no man's land. We're snapping the line and everything within that is the town limits. That could happen. But at this point, so what those annexation agreements do, and this one is shows you Midland to the east. The agreement basically says they won't annex on our side of the line and we won't annex on their side. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And likewise, we have that with Concord and Charlotte right now. The UDO is your Bible. So read it before you go to bed and memorize the verses, and we'll quiz you on at some point. So this is everything that we base decisions on, we base our review on, you base your decision on, the town council has to base its decision on, because if we don't, then Rich has to go to court and get us out of trouble. So I explained to people that the UDO really is land use law. It's law as much as any other law that is passed, and we have to comply with it. Land use has to occur in conformance with that. So whether it's zoning, what uses are allowed, or parking, landscaping requirements, flood protection, watershed, All of those things have got to line up with our ordinance. The UDO does not cover things like fire code, stormwater, or building code. So if we go through our whole process and sign off on a development, the developer then goes to the county, gets a building permit. We don't issue building permits. Now, there are some communities, larger communities, cities, that do that. They have everything in-house, so they grant the zoning approval, and they also grant the building approval. But that's not the case here. Every UDO is different, and ours is no, you know, Concord's is different, ours is different, Charlotte's different, and they're changing all the time. So, you know, zoning, essentially, where can something go? And if it's not allowed in a particular district or zone, then it can't be built. We have commercial, residential, industrial, mixed use, hybrids, some of which were approved a while ago. And so all these dictate everything from lot size to building height to coverage to, in some cases, parking. Although for residential, we do have minimum parking requirements as well. But we get down to the nitty gritty. Now, if someone is in the county, they're not in the town limits, and they're not in the ETJ, they're subject to the county zoning. So there is county zoning. And so they regulate just as we would, what the use, building, height, et cetera, et cetera. Now, because of the decision that was made, policy decision that we weren't going to give utilities unless someone was in the town limits, the county really doesn't approve subdivisions anymore. But back in the day, Rich, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the county would approve subdivisions and the town would extend utilities. Or I'm not sure what the arrangement was, but, and that's why you see today, you know, it could be some of these subdivisions still are not in the town limits, but do have utilities. So, you know, we have a little bit of a unique situation. I will tell you one other thing that is looming out there, and Jessica, you may be aware of this. There are certain neighborhoods that do have private water systems, and some of those private water systems are failing. And so what will happen is we anticipate and we're expecting that when they get to the point where the health department says this is not functional anymore, the cost of a new water system would exceed the HOA dues. And so at that point, they would be coming to the town for annexation unless there's some other arrangement, because we won't give utilities unless there is. And Rich, I don't know if we've had that situation yet, but.
We've got one that is in litigation with the state over that, where they, the guy who owns the private system won't release it. But the town has indicated they would take it over. But it's one of the situations where they apparently haven't worked it out. It's been going on for years. But their system is failing. And I say this is privately owned by one individual, and he won't agree with the state. He won't agree to let the town take it over. It hasn't happened. That's the only one I'm aware of.
So
I only know of Middleton.
there can be some sticky things that happen, but for new approved subdivisions, town utilities, town standards, town requirements are met. And that's what you all are, fortunately, you don't have to deal retroactively with things that were approved 15, 20 years ago. So there are, in the Unified Development Ordinance, and the unified part just means, it used to be that you had subdivision regulations, and then you had zoning regulations, and you had site plan regulations, and they were all different. And so you had to deal with 3 different documents. And I can remember, and this was the case, I've been in other states, and so someone got the brilliant idea, I don't know, maybe it was Rich's idea, to put them all together into one document. So we don't have to have these different processes, we can process everything under one ordinance. And so subdivision regulations are contained in the UDO, site plan as well, zoning, and so everything can be managed within the UDO.
One comment?
Yeah.
to that. I'm not sure I would agree with you calling the UDO a Bible, only because we've got a preacher sitting here. And aside from that, we're getting ready to change the whole thing, and the Bible doesn't change.
You are right, I have to be corrected there. So yes, we're yeah. And so we are about to, yes, so Robbie, don't study the UDO too closely each one, because we're going to change it. Again, we as staff have got to be able to navigate through all the pieces and parts, and you all are going to have to as well to become proficient at it. One of the things that we're in the process right now is updating the UDO to make it better, and we're just in the beginning stages of that process. The Harrisburg Area Land Use Plan is essentially the policy statement for how the town wants to develop. And so what you see on the screen is essentially the centerpiece of all that. This is the future land use map. Pretty simple. In the green is very low density. In the light pale yellow is low, and then medium density. These are the residential zones. And then you're going to get into employment, commercial, office, institutional, different uses. So when somebody comes in and they're not in the town limits and they want to they have a piece of property right there, and they want to annex, what we do and what you do in your review is say, okay, you want to build a development, or you want to build some houses at this number of lots for every acre, and out here it says it's less than 1 per acre, and you want to build 2 per acre. Well, then on its face, it's not consistent with the land use plan. And so that's one of those areas where you can weigh in and say we don't think it's consistent with the plan. Now, having said that, I will very quickly say that the land use plan does not have the force of law. Is that right, Rich? So if you make a recommendation, you say it's not consistent with the land use plan, and it goes to the town council, and the town council agrees with you. It's not consistent with the land use plan, but we're going to approve it anyway. They can do that. Now, you, as well as the council, have got to prepare and make a statement of consistency, which is the proposed action consistent with the land use plan? And you could say it's not, but still be approved. Either the council can say it is, but we're going to deny it. So they can do that as well. They can say, yeah, it's consistent, but it's not something that we think is in the interest of the town. One of the reasons why you need to update this plan on a regular basis is that conditions change. 2010, the town had about 10,000 people. 2020, it was just under 19. 2025, we have almost 25,000 people. And so with all of that change and with all the new developments and with all the activity going on, that's going to influence land use. Land use is temporary. You can have a low-density development, and 20 years from now, that development can be completely razed to the ground, rezoned, and you can have a higher density. But you do need to you have to go through that process for the land use plan. Now, we are also, at the same time we're working on the UDO, updating the comp plan. Well, put it this way. We're updating the Harrisburg area land use plan, which will be a component of the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan covers more than just land use. Our land use plan, pretty much confined to land use, doesn't deal with issues like housing, environmental, natural resource, transportation, in a comprehensive fashion. So we're going to have the first comprehensive plan that the town has ever had. And so that will then become the long-range plan, and the future land use element of that plan will be the basis for your consistency statement. And so it'll be a fresh look. There will absolutely be changes in what you see here, no question about it. We don't know how we're going to organize it yet. Some communities organize it parcel by parcel. I have been in communities that do it parcel by parcel. The problem with that is conditions change, right? And if you have it parcel by parcel and someone comes in and say they're on a main road and the town's grown very quickly and nobody wants to buy that house just because it's on a main road, and you say, I want to develop it for commercial, and say it's not consistent with the land use plan, we're not going to read. So, that's a problem. So this plan is broader, and I will tell you that if a parcel is either on the edge or straddles that, it could go either way. Or you could have something in here, and it really makes more sense to be part of that land use classification. So the process is just getting started, and we'll have a lot of opportunity for input. You all are going to be reading through a lot of stuff. So hold on and get ready for that. But that will be a pretty big undertaking. So here's the land use plan, just describes all of the different uses. I'm not sure if the residential, back up, yeah. Residential up there?
Yeah, well, the different ones.
Okay, yeah. So you can see there's a description of that land use category, and then in terms of residential, is it 1 to 2 units? Is it 2 to 3? Is it 3 to 4? Likewise for commercial, it's a certain type of commercial. Is it industrial? Is it light industrial? Is it neighborhood business? Is it general commercial? Do you have a question, Jen?
Yeah, are we gonna look into possibly changing, like developer math versus actual math on the 3 to 4 units per acre? Or is that like where's that come from? Does it come from developers? Does it come from the state? Like, why do we have to do the whole parcel versus what is usable / buildable, right?
So,
to get that medium density when it's really a higher density in the end.
Well, so there's a couple different ways that you can do this. We don't have to put a density number in there. We could frankly just regulate it by, say, lot size. Some communities do it the opposite. They have a density, but they don't have a lot size. So basically, it's flexible. In the end, the town and in the case of Harrisburg Town Council, makes decisions on what they want to approve and what they don't want to approve. I will tell you that, at least since I've been here, if the aim was 1 to 2 units per acre, upper would be 2 units per acre. A lot of development has come in at 1.3. And the reason they've done that is because the appetite for the council was, we don't want 2 units, we want less than that. So it goes both ways. And it's a decision that, the council makes, but, in general, planning circles, and this is pretty, uniform, not only North Carolina, but across the country, you calculate density as gross density. And you can calculate net density by netting out roads, you can net out non-buildable areas, you can do that. And we could have something like that in our ordinance. We haven't done it. I haven't been anywhere that's done net density.
But I do want to add the recent state law bill that's gone through actually clarifies that, and they're putting it in that can only be calculated by gross.
So-
That's because they're getting paid by building lobbyists.
There's some more of that developer math at the state level.
Yeah.
But again, here's where the conditional zoning comes in. So someone comes in and they want to do RM2, which is 15,000, I think 15,000 square foot
Square footage, that's
density.
tiny.
And, yeah,
It's tiny.
so, but it's a conditional rezoning, and so the council says, we want a little bit less. We want you to come in under that. In other words, not as dense. And that's really been what's happened the last 2 or 3 years since I've been here. I frankly haven't seen any that have even hit the mark on a 1 to 2 acre. It's usually been 1.3, 1.4, 1.2, because the council has said, this is what we're aiming for. So that's one of the benefits of conditional zoning. And one of the reasons why we haven't, and at least to this point, a lot, you can do it either way. There are communities which rezone or pre-zone. So let's say, for example, we have an area of the town that's AG, agricultural, which is essentially farmland. The town could, not saying that it would, say, you know what, we want to rezone this RM1, which would allow for single family at 20,000 or 2 units per acre. You pre-zone. Now, we don't do that. We don't rezone anything. We haven't rezoned anything unless someone comes in and says, we want to rezone that property. Now, if we already have zoning on that property, that is a little bit different. We haven't had a whole lot of those. I'm trying to remember if we've had one. We may have had a small sliver that was residential next to commercial, and it really wasn't developable for residential, so it was rezoned to commercial. But typically, we won't rezone something, or we haven't rezoned without conditions on the approval. So whether it's a residential or a non-residential or mixed use, that is the way it goes. So we'll see. Shelley mentioned this legislation, which was already approved, which, among other things, did not allow for downzoning. So that basically means if someone can build 3 units to the acre, the town can't come in and rezone and say, you can only build 2 units to the acre. So that is, right now, the law in North Carolina. I don't know if anybody's challenged it yet, Rich, but I have heard that one community got exempted from that. I don't know what the community is, but I read in the legislative bulletin for the Planning Association for North Carolina, one community got exempt from that. Others tried, but right now everybody is subject to that down zoning. And then there's an even bigger bill that's out there, and it's not a big, beautiful bill. It really is a very, very, I'll put it this way, it would gut a lot of local land use regulation. It would take a lot of land use discretion away from the town, essentially allowing, density in whatever measure. Parking requirements could be eliminated. So there's a lot in that bill, and hopefully there'll be enough shouting that it won't happen. Bill?
Have they started a process where they're gonna start pulling pieces of that out and sticking it in other legislation? Have we seen any of that yet?
Not yet.
Not
Well,
yet.
so
But they're in
no,
process.
but so that omnibus, I guess it's 205, Senate Bill
Senate bill?
205.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of pieces to it. We'll get a copy of it to you, so you can see for yourself.
I'm familiar with the
it's-
original, I'm waiting for them to.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
got
But-
to- Let's slip it in here.
I've been in North Carolina 20 years, and every year since I've been here, there's been proposed legislation that everybody goes like this and then it goes away. This legislation that was just approved was the first time in 20 years I've been here that there was some stuff in there that wasn't very good. This bill that is being considered would be really bad. It's so bad that I don't think it's going to pass. I do think that probably there are going to be pieces that pulled out because I don't have enough votes to pass the whole thing. Again, ETJ is one of those things. So theoretically, if ETJ is done away with, a developer could put something right on the border of the community, and we'd have nothing to say. And you could look out of your window and see this monstrosity, whatever it is, and not be able to do anything about it. So we'll stay tuned, but I'm somewhat hopeful that it won't be as bad as we think it could be. Land use plan, again, this is a big picture policy. This is how the town wants to grow, the vision, what it wants to be, residential, commercial, all those pieces. And we're going to revisit that for the comp plan. And things have changed since this was adopted in 2018. 7 years in North Carolina is almost like a century for a growing community. It's recommended every 10 years you do an update to your plan. A lot of communities go 5 years and say we need to update this because things have changed so much. So we will be working through that, and it's going to be a process. So staff role, sort of touched on a little bit. Our role initially is to meet with developers, meet with applicants that want to develop and want to build. We, walk them through the process. We explain to them what is and what is not allowed. The process that we have in Harrisburg is very front-end loaded. And what I mean by that is by the time you see it, there's probably been 6 to 9 months of in some cases a year, of work done before you ever see it. Because in virtually every case, it's going to be a conditional zoning. And so we don't want to bring something to you or the council that is not going to be supported. So we are really trying to thread the needle with development to make sure it's consistent with the land use plan, it meets the zoning requirements, and it's something council will support. So I mentioned earlier about legislative process. legislative process means, unlike the Board of Adjustment, developers can have all the discussions they want with the council. Individually, they can talk to them, and they can get their their input. They can make some changes. So there's no, there's no. They can talk to neighbors. We do have a process where formally they need to have a meeting with the neighbors, but they can have all the discussions they want. They have discussions with us, but we try to make sure that when we bring something to you, it's going to have a fairly good chance of being approved, so that we don't waste everybody's time, because it is a long process. And in Harrisburg, the standards are high, and so when the standards are high, it takes a little bit longer to go through the process. So people who want to develop in Harrisburg have to understand that this is not come in, sit down, file an application, come before the board the next month, go to the council and get approval. It's not going to happen. Now, for property that's zoned, whatever the zoning is, and someone can build with that zoning, then you won't see them. They'll just, we'll deal with whatever it is. We've got a couple of those that are in consideration right now, where the zoning is fine, and typically that'll be commercial. It's in a general commercial zone or whatever the zone might be, or it's employment, and it's all good. Then we just make sure that it meets all the regulations. But typically, it's going to come before you, except that the zoning is all good. So what do? In between our naps, he went even like I didn't. There's a lot of detail that we go through, and for those who have been around and the process and understand it, that there's a lot behind the curtain. There's a lot that goes on, and so everything from application review. We have meetings internally with different departments: engineering, public works, fire, park and recreation. Everybody comes together, makes comments. We modify the plan, so there are there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, especially if it is a conditional rezoning that has an annexation on top of it, and maybe there's another twist to it. Maybe we have to change the watershed overlay, or there's some other unique part of it. So it can get complicated. But again, the ordinance is what we go by, and that keeps us out of trouble. And we try to stick to that as close as possible. Now, I'll just mention one thing, and I think some of you are aware of this, but when we're looking at the ordinance, somebody comes in and we're going through the process, and we make an assessment or determination, whatever it is, on use, on layout, on what is required, and we make that determination, and the applicant says that's not the correct interpretation. They can appeal the administrative decision. We've had a few of those, and that goes to the Board of Adjustment, and then the Board of Adjustment will make a decision. Was the decision correct, or was the decision not correct? Does it need to be modified, or is it good the way it is? So that's the check, at least on us. You are advisory, and so, and we'll talk about conflict of interest in just a minute. So, there are some things that you need to be aware of. But if something gets approved at town council and someone someone is not happy, they can challenge that. They have to go to court. Superior Court, and they could file a lawsuit, and then Rich has got to prepare for that case and go through the process. There can be an appeal from a decision by the town council. Can also be an appeal by the Board of Adjustment. You end up in court, and then we have to go through that process. Fortunately, we don't have a whole lot of those. It seems like we've had more code enforcement cases, Rich, that have gone before the court than land use. And again, you want to stay out of court. But typically that's not the case. There are instances where that happens, but it's pretty rare that a decision would be appealed from the council where they would prevail. But they could prevail if the council did not follow the UDO, which is why it's really important to follow the steps. And I can remember when I was in Huntersville about 15 years ago, when the consistency statement was just enacted into law. Remember that, Shelley? And then we had so everybody was getting used to this. And the Huntersville Town Board of Commissioners approved the development and did not do a consistency statement. And so if somebody did not agree with the decision, they took them to court, they got overturned because they didn't follow the regulation. So
That happened in Canal Wars too.
So, number one, follow the rules. And if we do that, then we're in good shape most of the time. So, the town attorney will again advise both planning board, advise town council, advise board of adjustment, advise us. We will call Rich up and ask him questions about different matters, and that's what Rich is there for. Sometimes we need to bring in some other attorneys because things start to get a little more complicated. We had a few of those cases recently, and that's something that can happen. But you will always have.
The complication is not from the issues, it's more from the fact that you have to have different people advised in different parts of the procedure. The board needs an attorney to advise them, the staff needs an attorney to advise them. And in the most recent one that we had, the town was taking a position that was different from staff, so we had to have attorney represent the town. So that was because of the situation. But it wasn't because the issue was all that complicated because of the way it turned out.
Yeah, there can be a lot of moving pieces.
That's rare too. So.
Yeah. So we make sure that we're following the rules. And hopefully we won't get into any of those. I have been doing this for about 35 years. I've had a few cases, and usually I don't think there's ever been one that we did not win, except that one in Huntersville that overturned. But it happens, and that's where you get precedent set at the Supreme Court level. Okay, so here's the point where you gotta pay attention. So conflicts of interest. An appointed board, which you are, and I'm just gonna focus on the highlighted portion. You shall not vote when the outcome is likely to have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact on the member. So, Bill, you have a family member who stands to make a lot of money for a development. and you are championing it as the chair. You know, you're up there cheerleading this, and you know, that would be a pretty obvious, you know, conflict of interest. Rich, I don't know that there's very many of these cases that come up, but they can. So,
Well, they don't, and it's surprising they don't come up even in a smaller place, as much as you would think they would.
the bar's pretty high though.
We haven't had that many out here. So. And typically, you know, between staff and me, if we know that there's something that kind of touches on this statute, you know, we give you advice as to whether we think it could be a conflict or not. If we know that you let us know that there may be something that might touch on that, so we can help with that. It's not always that clear.
Yeah, and the bar is pretty high. Direct, substantial, readily identifiable. It's got to be pretty. Now that, and I'll say this: it could be that you vote on a subdivision and you may benefit from it, but the bar is pretty high. You know, this direct, substantial, readily identifiable. You may the overflow. You may somehow benefit from it, but it's got to be pretty egregious, you know, to fall into this. So I think you all, in signing your forms, have the language that you're seeing. And then the second piece of that is an appointed board member shall not vote on a zoning amendment if the landowner of the property subject to rezoning has a close familial, business, or associational relationship. Say that 10 times fast. So again, if you have someone that you're doing business with and you're on the board or you're on the council, and frankly, this is more likely to affect a decision-making body. I don't know that there would be too much for an advisory board that you would get sued on something. Although you always could get sued. But council, it may be that, you know, someone can say, somebody on the council is going to get rich if this is approved, and they just voted on it. Now, as Rich said, and I've seen this happen before, can always ask ahead of time and say, you know, I might have a little bit of concern here, and then you would just recuse yourself. And that's something that you would do at a meeting. Rich, I believe there's a vote on that.
Yeah, we actually, to recuse somebody, usually vote on it. But I think the part of that would probably apply to this board, that they need to be most careful about is bias. Making a decision on something in advance in your mind, where you just decide this is the way I'm going to vote before you've heard the case. That's the one that I think comes up that could be, you know, the most or the hardest one to deal with, because you've heard a lot about a project, even though it hasn't been presented to you. You've already decided you either like it or you don't like it. And so if you have a fixed opinion in advance, that can be turn out to be a conflict of interest. You got to keep an open mind, because in your situation you can hear about it outside of the hearing, like Jack has pointed out. You know, the developer or whoever can come and talk to each of you individually about it, and you know, try to get your support, and you might hear enough outside of the, you know, before it's been heard in the hearing that you decide you don't like it. But you pretty much have to keep an open mind until you've actually heard it when it's presented formally to you. So that's the one I think you need to just be careful about, because that's the one that I think affect you, or could affect, you know, something that comes before you at some point.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Rich. So developers can call you up, Robbie, and they may call all of you. They may email all of you. I don't think they could send them gifts, right? That's not legal. But Eastwar, sitting as a planning board ETJ rep, can talk all he wants outside of this room, but Board of Adjustment, you get a call, you hang up, right? I mean, there's the difference. You can talk if it's planning board, but if it's Board of Adjustment, you can't. It's similar to court. Jurors can't discuss the case outside of the courtroom. So anyway, this is not something that you have to be afraid of. But if there is something, then just bring it up. Either myself, Rich, we can have a discussion. And typically, if we've got 7 people and we 5 can do it, then if we lose one, we'll be all right. Okay. So don't feel like you gotta stay in there for everyone. If you can step down. Open meetings law basically means that public decisions have got to be made in an open forum and not behind some door where a decision's made and then it is announced afterwards. I will say one other thing. I was going to mention this, but you are considering a case, and it's a very complicated case. You don't have to decide it one night. You can continue it to the next meeting. I think a couple times you've done that. So you don't have to decide something in one night. And I've been in a couple different places where it's been continued 2 or 3 times. And sometimes the developer's okay with that because they're trying to work out whatever the issue is. And so, and I've seen cases where, developers come before the board and, all the neighbors show up in force and are, being very, very much in opposition. The developer will say, I'd like to continue or recess or continue the meeting, and then meet with all the neighbors and say, and they can do that just as they can meet with you, they can meet with the council, say, what can I do? What can we do? And they can have a discussion and they can have a negotiation. And it may be that they'll come back in and be all smiling. Maybe half smiling, but that can happen as well. So all the actions have got to take place in a public meeting, including your meeting. These are the 3 important plans: Harrisburg Area Land Use Plan, the HALA, the UDO, and the Harrisburg Transportation Plan. And I think, is that it? Oh, no, we have one more. So the Blue Book, are we getting, everybody getting the Blue Book? Robbie getting the Blue Book and Eastwar getting the Blue Book? You got it? So anyway, this book is very helpful. North Carolina has very good land use and planning expertise, and the School of Government through, or UNC School of Government has a very strong presence where they will, give courses for different, and we'll tell you about those when they come up, both for Board of Adjustment and for Planning Board. The quasi-judicial handbook is for Board of Adjustment. You don't need to worry about that unless you're on the Board of Adjustment. So you got to read both books, Eastwar. I'm sorry. You really got to get your reading down. But the ordinance is the UDO is what you're really focused on, and hopefully as you get more familiar with it, you'll be more comfortable with it. But we will walk you through it, and the different features that are important for a rezoning or a text amendment, or a whatever it may be. So, for example, comprehensive plan. You all will review that comprehensive plan. When it's all done and there's a bow on it, you will make a recommendation to the town council. You recommend approval, recommend not approval, you recommend, we want to approve it, but change this. You have to do that, and you will need to do that. So it could be varied. You could be voting on a residential subdivision or on a comprehensive plan. It can be a text amendment, it could be a zoning map change. So there's a lot of different things that you can be asked to do. Questions?
Questions? Thank you, Zach. A lot of good stuff. If nobody has any questions with that, we have, our next item is staff updates. Do we have no staff updates tonight? So lastly, an adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.